Okay. So namaskar and welcome to Marathi Vishwa Community Katta's second session with Major Sachin Adbe. I have had the good fortune of working with Sachin for the last 5 years. Sachin is also our current vice president, and this is something that not a lot of people know about him. We have been trying to get him to talk, and we are really very happy that he agreed to do this. So, Sachin, thank you very much. Sachin does a lot of volunteer activities behind the scenes. He does not like to talk about it. But one of his passion from the beginning, from the time I have met him or known him, has been flying. And he took me up once. I was very scared. I don't know if I want to do that again, but he's very passionate about it. He's traveled a lot. He has a lot of adventures to tell all of you. So without further ado, Major Sachin Adbe. Sachin, go ahead.
Thank you, Anaga, for the kind words. I hope that's not a general feeling. Once you go up with me, you don't want to go up ever again. so any day you want to, I'm up for it. Like I'm always flying.
Okay.
So, जे सगळे join झाले त्यांना thank you very much for allowing me to share something that is very near and dear to my heart. मी मराठीत बोलण्याचा प्रयत्न करीन, पण I've been here for a long time. So it's very natural for me to switch to English. मला बऱ्याचशा शब्दांचे at least या context मध्ये मराठी माहिती नाहीये. त्यामुळे I hope you guys will please excuse me on that. So without further ado, let me start. So मी खूप वर्षापूर्वी one of my other passions is reading, and I read anything and everything. And I was reading a book of quotes. त्याच्यामध्ये मला हा quote सापडला, which was very, very inspiring to me. And I wanted to be part of something big, something different. And similar to a lot of people, I've always been fascinated with aviation. It just boggles my mind की 1903 मध्ये जेव्हा फर्स्ट टाइम एअरप्लेन इन्व्हेंट झालं त्याच्यानंतर it's been what 120 years and look how far we've come. I mean, notwithstanding the balloons that are flying over the US recently, there have been real recent and amazing advancements. So what can I do? Growing up, it was very straight up here की शिक्षण, engineering आणि job US ला येणं हे काही हे नव्हतं. पण growing up, I didn't really have an avenue that I knew that I would be able to advance the passion there. पण a little bit about myself. So जेव्हा मी पहिल्यांदा आलो, of course, as a lot of us, IT इंडस्ट्रीतनं कंपनीतनं इकडे आलो. I used to live in Morristown. सध्या मी I'm a vice president of Marathi Vishwa. I love traveling, reading and exploring. There is nothing that I won't do. I have a ongoing argument with my wife Shilpa. My first answer is yes, and then I ask, what's it about? She gets really pissed off about that. But that's the kind of person. My answer is always yes, and then I'll figure out what it is about. So being a pilot is just like it. I mean, खूप वर्षापूर्वी मी 15 वर्ष झाले मला पायलट लायसन्स मिळून. आणि that picture is I was at an event in Teterboro airport. And suddenly some guy showed up and he started talking to me, and then he's like, ek mic dila and I want to interview, and I was very happy. I'm like, I'm not dressed. And then he's like, never mind, we are on a radio, so you don't have to worry about how you are dressed. But that was my 2 minutes of fame, being part of being interviewed for a radio show. So like I said, aviation always fascinated. When I used to live in Morristown initially, local TV, I mean, I'm dating myself, but we were watching local TV, and suddenly an ad popped up, and it was for a local flight school, and it said they were in the same town as me, Morristown. And I'm like, how is that? I mean, it seems like a really big thing to do, learning to fly, and there's a school right here. So when I found out about that school, it literally was 10 minutes from where I was. And मी तिकडे गेलो आणि त्यांना म्हटलं की मला पायलट व्हायचं. ते म्हणे डिस्को फ्लाइट घ्यायला लागेल. I'm like, disco flight, I cannot dance to save my life. What the heck is a disco flight? It turns out it's like, they call it a discovery flight. And the point of discovery flight is it's not at least back then, it wasn't a small commitment. Like you had to pursue it for a while. So their point was that they would take you up in an airplane, just show you the ropes, what things are. And they wanted to make sure that you liked it, that you enjoyed it. Shilpa, my wife, she also did it with me. She wasn't that crazy about learning to fly, so she dropped out. But I continued. There were a couple of friends, but I continued. And once, like you've been there up there once, that quote that I quoted earlier. If you've been there once, you'll always dream. Like every time an airplane goes above me, my head automatically goes, and I'm trying to figure out ki kai chal raha hai, kutla viman hai, kutte chal raha hai. That's another thing I'm fascinated about. Quintessential question. Get asked every time. How much does it cost? And this past weekend, someone said average, literally in these words, average kitna deti hai? And like a lot of things, it kind of depends. Because a lot has changed since I became a pilot. Things have been made easier. There's a definite push. At least USG pilot population is coming down. It's not growing as much as they like to. We all hear about the pilot shortages. For some people, it is about the number of people that are in this line. So especially young mula mulina especially, they've made it really easy to become a pilot. So it truly depends on the kinds of flying you want to do. If you just want to like jump in the plane and fly around to get $100 hamburger, doesn't cost a lot. But if you have any questions, please mala contact kara, mi tumhala details sangin. And how far can a plane go? So I've flown from South Bend, Indiana to New Jersey in like 3 hours, much faster than you could drive. So again, a lot of technical factors depend on winds, depends on a lot of things. So there's no straight, clear answer. But if you were to ask me, I wouldn't do it for money. And you know what? Let me start my slideshow. I hope it still works. Can you guys still see my screen? Not for the money. Cool.
Yeah.
So I mean, if you wanted me, like, why would I become a pilot? Forget about the money for a moment. Forget about everything for a moment. But I wouldn't do it for the money. I would do it for these experiences. Like this is an Anagavi letter. So this is me flying around World Trade Center. And every time I do this flight, everybody is like, really, you can fly this close? And you can. It literally feels like you can reach out and touch it. You're flying so close. It's an amazing feeling. This is Verrazano Bridge. This is New York City at night. It truly is like, it looks different every time I fly. You find something new. This is New York Harbor coming over Newark Airport. So we actually get to fly over Newark Airport. And if you can see my mouse, we basically go up the Hudson River like this. It looks absolutely amazing. And the biggest thing is maybe Anaga's intro gave you kind of a hint. I'm an introvert. I'm perfectly happy reading a good book, not talking to anyone. But aviation has allowed me to form so many bonds and talking to so many people. Typically, I think it's human nature. We tend to get together with people like us. And group there's one guy who's the chief editor of a publishing house. One guy who owns a company. One guy who lives in here for 6 months, lives in Israel for 6 months, runs a defense company, was a previous F-16 pilot. So these people I would never have met otherwise. And I think they enrich in my life. So I would say, if nothing else, do it for this. This was Grand Canyon. Last year, we flew from California to New Jersey. Took us 5 days. But again, watching you cannot imagine how beautiful this country is until you've done it in a small airplane. And we were flying slow. It took us 5 days. We were not flying for 5 days. But we hop karad. It is incredibly beautiful. Like St. Louis. I've lived near Chicago for 6 years. Never seen it like this. Always do it. This is the Baha'i Temple in Chicago. We're coming back from Wisconsin one time. It's incredibly beautiful. Like, I had no idea this Baha'i Temple existed. In Chicago, la kamit kami 20-25 gelo so never knew this existed until I saw this here. And this was the achievement. One day I was flying around New York City, and the controller tells me ki descend thoda khali जा इतका ज्या हाईटला मी होतो they're like khali जा. I'm like, okay, मी जातो. What's it about? He's like, there's a flyover above you. So this was July 4th, 2020, when the whole world was, of course, shut down. And the US Air Force did a flyby over the Hudson River with every plane they had. So they started off with F-15s, F-16s, त्यांच्या मागे F-15 ची squadron होती, त्यांच्या मागे the B-2 bomber. And like billions and billions of dollars of equipment, even more than that in trained personnel. And if you can see my mouse, her arrow is where I am. I'm just flying around. Like वरनं सगळे Air Force विमानं चाललेत आणि like I'm just a little guy in a 4-seater just flying by it. And this is the kind of thing that you don't get to do anywhere else, truly. I mean, I've flown in a bunch of continents. I haven't flown in India yet. I've flown in Europe. I've flown in Africa. You don't get to do this anywhere else. This freedom where you can just jump in a plane and go anywhere you want. Like flying over New York City is mind-boggling to a lot of people, that even after the unfortunate events of 9/11, that you can still do it. It's mind-boggling, but that's the kind of freedom that you get. And this evening's the main topic. How do I discover civil air patrol? By all means, I tend to drone on when I talk about these things that are very dear to me. I can talk for hours. So कोणाला काही प्रश्न असेल तर please feel free to interrupt me. I may not be able to see chat. So Aniruddha and Anaga, if you could please.
No worries. Sachin, मलाच एक प्रश्न आहे. I'll start with that. हे photos तू काढलेस का कोणीतरी होतं बाजूला? Did you have your hands on the wheel?
I will plead the fifth on that. Most of it they me काढले, but many not me. Yeah, that's
okay. We'll leave it at that.
Okay. So civil air patrol. The one
Sachin,
thing.
just a comment, Atul here. And
Yes.
my default name is still Marathi Vishwa. I don't know why I need to change that. But just, I don't know how many have been on a flight with you, right? When you're going through the whole process, that's just an experience, right?
Yes.
All the check that you do before you fly, then all the instructions, you're talking to the air traffic commanders, petrol, they're giving you all the instructions. That's
Yes.
just amazing experience. So I would say, each one of you here on the call, you should try flying with Sachin once. It's an experience you'll remember for a lifetime.
Yeah, and thank you for that, Atul. I'm always ready to go. Just call me up and we'll go flying. It's any you can fly. I'll show you where I fly from. But thank you for that. So civil air patrol, माझ्या training मध्ये, like I was saying, US is really unique in the sense, when I was training, they told us that if you're going somewhere, do this, like file a flight plan, let someone know. And if you don't reach where you're going, within 45 minutes, civil air patrol will come find you. And I'm like, who are these people? Why are they doing this? Like, what do you mean they'll come? Are they like, is someone paying them? Are they like police? They're like, no, it's like volunteers. And I was amazed by that. And I did some little bit of reading. And civil air patrol operates the world's largest fleet of single engine airplanes, all paid for the US Air Force. Everybody is volunteer. They're involved in search and rescue. That much I knew. But the first time I walked into a squadron, there were all these kids. I'm like, I don't know, like, are the kids flying the plane? Are the kids coming to do search and rescue? Like, I had no idea. I mean, they say that civil air patrol is America's best kept secret. And unfortunately, it's true. Not a lot of people know about it. But our primary mission is, believe it or not, is actually not search and rescue, civil air patrols. So this is me. I used to be in charge of a squadron. With the first day, December 2014, when I started, it was 16 people in Chatham. And then we moved to Edison. And this was within a couple of months of being in Edison. We grown exponentially. I'm no longer the in charge at Edison. But I still keep tabs, and they now have 140 cadets. So we've grown that squadron from 16 people to more than 180 now. And we'll get to what are all these kids doing there. We'll get to that in a second. So a little bit about me, about my civilian patrol. So my grade right now is major. I'm the group commander for group 2 to 3. So Central Jersey 9 squadrons, comprising about 700 people, and their commander. Basically, what that means is, I'm not at the grassroots level where most of people join. So if you go to gocivilarpatrol.com, तिथे आमच्या सगळ्या स्क्वॉड्रन्सची लिस्ट आहे. आणि त्या सगळ्या स्क्वॉड्रन्स are each state in the country plus Puerto Rico and Guam. So 52 wings आहेत civilian patrolच्या, आणि each wing is divided further याच्यासाठी depending on the organization. So New Jersey is divided into 3 parts, northern, central, and southern. So I'm the commander for the central New Jersey squadrons. A little bit of a history, like why were we formed? So 1941, when the war was raging in Europe, even before Pearl Harbor, some people decided that they want to do something. And by that time, Germany had already started having submarines off the coast of the Atlantic coast. So the man called Gil Rob Wilson, he said, we have all these airplanes, we should do something. So what they started to do was in fact, they were founded in Atlantic City, the airport called Bader Field, which unfortunately doesn't exist. So that Bader Field is an airport hota. They were formed, and they would take off from there, patrol the coast of North Atlantic, looking for submarines. The idea was if a submarine were to sneak in, they would warn the Air Force and someone would go out and do something. They in fact were able to sink one submarine. So they would carry these hand grenades and they would drop the grenades out of the airplanes. We don't do anything that exciting anymore. We do other things that are a little bit more exciting. But that's how we were formed in 1941. And in fact, before Air Force. And in 48, when the Air Force was formed, since then, we are the civilian auxiliary of the United States Air Force. What that means is we have the privilege of wearing the Air Force uniform, which I'm not. This is my working uniform. But ceremonies on certain occasions, we get to wear the Air Force uniform. When we are flying, we are wearing flight suit. So we get a lot of privileges, but we are not the military. The big difference is we can say no. We are all volunteers. So everybody who volunteers for civilian patrol, is a volunteer. You do it time permitting. There's nobody who will force you to do anything. A big part of the job, like I said, we do cadet programs. That is one of our missions. So we have 3 missions right now: cadet programs, aerospace education, and emergency services. Cadet programs, right now, it's a big push on getting kids interested in aviation in particular and STEM, STEM fields in general. So we do a lot of things. The previous question, how much it costs? If you're a young child between 12 and 18 years old, it definitely will be a lot cheaper if you're a civilian patrol member. But we are not a flight school. Like if you only want to learn to fly, CAP's not a good place for you. We do a lot of other things, such as leadership skills, aerospace education, physical fitness. We have very, very structured programs. So these are all cadets, the kids that you've seen. Every December we do an activity called Wreaths Across America. So we buy wreaths, and on I think 2nd or 3rd Sunday in December, we go lay those wreaths on fallen service members' graves. So this is the cadets wearing one of the Air Force uniforms. And then this is a very, very solemn occasion, so we get to participate, and I'm very thankful about that. But we do all kinds of things. It's a very structured program. It's a lot different than Scouts. So it's not like you cannot really compare Scouts and here together. We are not an outdoors team. It's like holistic. There's 16 stages that each cadet can go through. Only about 5 0.3% make it all the way 16. There's plenty of young kids in Edison that I'm incredibly proud of that are almost there. So there's about 40,000 cadets overall in the nation. And there's 0.3% of 40,000 is what, 1,200 or 120. Don't ask me to do math this quickly. But a lot of the young kids in Edison, I see they'll definitely go doing that. So I'm really, really proud of those kids, all of them. And I've seen, like, when I started flying with young kids, like I've seen a 12-year-old when I take him up for the first time, and their eyes widen. And some of them are very apprehensive. They come in at like 12 years old. They don't know what to expect. They cannot even see out the window. And oh my God, that's just tough. So if you become a pilot, that's an incentive to give back to the community. Cadet Programs is one of our missions. The other programs is aerospace education. We do a lot of training with teachers. But STEM मध्ये पण खूप हे करतो. Teachers la we have resources for teachers. We have resources for students. We have STEM kits with drones, with Raspberry Pis, with a bunch of stuff. So essentially the point is that we'll provide the resources. We want the community to come up. That's in fact our motto. I should have started with that. Our motto is citizens serving communities. So Civil Air Patrol will provide all these resources. And we want the community to step up and invest in their community, in their future, in their children, to basically help train them. Our third mission, which flying is part of, is the emergency services. So we do search and rescue, disaster relief, homeland security. Counter drug was one of my favorite missions. We would basically fly over Pennsylvania, up and down, looking for contraband crops. What we did when we found them, I can't tell you, but it was a lot of fun. We did homeland security. We train with Coast Guard helicopters and F-16 pilots, because sometimes you'll see in the news that somebody was intercepted. So that's where an F-16 will come intercept a small plane. So we act as bogies. We do that. We fly that every couple of weeks. One thing I should add here at this point is anytime a Civil Air Patrol airplane goes up, there's at least 3 people in the plane. The pilot, as it was explained to me on day 1, is a glorified bus driver. I'm not the mission commander. I'm simply the pilot. I have to keep the other 3 guys safe. The person who's sitting right next to me, who's often not a pilot, he's the mission commander. Maja mage ek airborne photographer asto, like this person is doing for taking pictures, or a scanner asto, someone looking out. So that person is essentially, they are not pilots. So if you're wondering, what will you do? Will you get to fly? So Civil Air Patrol will not teach senior members to fly. Young cadets, we will teach them how to fly. It is incredibly cost effective. That's an added benefit. But for senior members, when the adults who join and help run the program, they can still be part of the air crew in that right seat as the mission commander, or somebody sitting in the back with the airborne photography. One of our recent airborne photography flights I flew was near JFK Airport. The Army Corps of Engineers was interested in एक levy त्यांनी repair केली होती मागच्या वर्षी. That was about to fail. So they had us go out and take pictures. And like they were holding airlines while we were up there for like just making circles, photography. So it was an amazing experience for all. And the 2 pictures that you see, there's 2 parts in emergency services. One is airplane, air crews. The other one is ground. So in the search and rescue, we recently had a case in Brooklyn, a plane crash in Brooklyn, where we were called out for a search and rescue. So we fly single engine planes, which cannot land, as in we need a runway to land. So when we find whatever we are searching for, we call in the ground crews. So bottom right is a picture. These are cadets and senior members who are actually acting on directions from the air crew that may be orbiting above, and telling them, hey, this is where I found the target. Now go actually find it and do something. And one of the other things we do in air crew is orientation flights. So every cadet who joins, त्यांना 5 free flights मिळतात in a powered plane आणि 5 in a glider. So the purpose of those flights is to get young people excited about flying. So the first flight is typically just telling them where everything is, where the aileron is, where the elevator is, things like those. And they get progressive, a little bit more technical. So we'll teach them about principles of flight. We'll teach them about angles of attack. We'll teach them about weather, any winds, any all that. So there's a lot you can do. And this was again some pictures where we were helping with natural disasters. So COVIDच्या काळात, for example, we were making PPEs. We were volunteering in food bank, a hillside community food bank. And if you guys ever have a chance, I would recommend you should go to one of the food banks. Doesn't matter what it is, doesn't matter where it is. I had no idea of the need that existed during COVID. And मला लोकांनी सांगितलं की this is a regular need. Like the first time we went there we were there every day of the week. Not me personally, but Civil Air Patrol was there every day of the week, 5 days, 6 days a week for I think 6 months. And in one of the shifts we made 1,200 boxes. I was very proud of myself. Each box will serve a family of 4 for 4 days. And again, I was doing the math in my head. We made 1,200 boxes. We are feeding so many people. And the person at the food bank came and said, these will all be gone in 3 hours. And that was incredibly eye-opening. You think 1,200 is a lot and they'll all be gone in 3 hours. So the need exists tremendously. If not for us, if not with us, with Civil Air Patrol, I would recommend you go volunteer with someone else. There's plenty of need out there. I'm sorry, I digressed there for a second. But again, where is CAP? So if you go, we are everywhere. 52 wings. We are in every state, Puerto Rico, Guam. If you go to gocivilairpatrol.com, there's a website that talks about, there's a squadron locator there. You can find any squadron, or you can contact me. I will help you find a squadron. But we are everywhere. I would recommend you go look us up. How are we doing on time? We're doing good. So up in New Jersey, this is a little bit information. Up in New Jersey, काय करतो? So we do homeland security missions, disaster relief missions, community service. तुम्ही कधी Memorial Day is coming up. It's still a couple of months away. But that's when most of our squadrons will actually go march in town parades. I know we march in Edison. We used to do it in Chatham, New Jersey. We don't anymore. But Edison la karto, North Plainfield la karto, Sayreville la karto, Trenton la karto. Plenty of places. We'll do it a lot. There's about 1,400 members, a little more over 1,400 in New Jersey, about 600 in Central Jersey, of which I'm the group commander. One of our big things that we do is Cyber Patriot and Stellar Explorer. These are for middle school and high school students. These are national competitions sponsored by Air Force Association. And the goal is, what they do is, like Cyber Patriot, for example, they'll give you a computer image and you have to find vulnerabilities in that image. The more you find, the more points you get. And there's a regional competition, a national competition, and the winner gets to go to Washington, D.C., all expenses paid. Stellar Explorer is a competition that's sponsored by Northrop Grumman. That's focused on space. I have not been involved in that a lot, but that's one of our very, very popular competition. We also do model rocketry. There's like 3 places in New Jersey where you can launch rockets. So we actually make rockets. That's part of our program, is that we'll teach you how to build a rocket. We'll teach you where you can launch it. There's, like I said, there's only 3 places. And then there's a lot of STEM kits that integrate with some of those rockets. And physics, just making physics fun. We do that a lot. One of the new things that coming up is SUAS program, that is the Small Unmanned Aircraft Systems. So I'm hoping eventually one of these days it will make me redundant as the pilot. But because of the battery situation, that day is not soon enough, thankfully. But we are beginning to do that. Survey वगैरह आम्ही करतो. We are beginning to use the drones for that. And one of the things that I didn't put here is that's coming up recently is the cell phone forensics. I mean, a somber fact is when someone gets lost, if they don't have their cell phone, it's a big country, very, very difficult to find. So the chances, the number of recovery and the chances of recovery are very low. But of course, nowadays, these days, everybody carries cell phones. So that's something that we are doing in New Jersey, working on the cell phone forensics team, where we are able to track pings from a plane, from a phone. And if someone is lost, then we'll use the cell phone forensics where the phone has been to try to find them. There's plenty of other things that go on. I wanted to fit the highlights on the slide.
Sachin, sorry, a technical question. The phone, even if it's off, you can press it, or it has to be on?
Yeah, त्याची fidelity कमी होते.
Okay.
But yeah, even when it's off, we can still track the movements by the time it turned off. तो कुठे होता, किती वेळ होता. We can still track it.
That's nice.
Even in airplane mode, it still works. And yeah, the thing they say about shutting off your phones in flight.
Yeah.
That actually, there's a valid reason. Current typically cell phone towers the signals go down. They don't go up. Your phone has to work a little bit harder if you keep your phone on in flights, and it also overwhelms because the transmitter has to work harder to keep the connection. Even if it is in airplane mode, we're still able to track it. I don't know how to do it. That's a new program.
So Sachin, one more question on this, right? So Wi-Fi in the flight, it does not interfere with any of your commands? Like how cell phone you ask us to put on airplane mode, right? Mm-hmm. Because my assumption is that it may interfere with your communication with the command center. Yeah. Wi-Fi doesn't interfere at all?
It depends. Most planes have shielding, but again, many of the planes, that's the reason you still have cigarette extinguishers in airplanes, is because a lot of these planes are old, the designs are old. To upgrade the designs, it costs a lot of money and time, so the manufacturers don't do it. So the reason they ask you to turn them off is maybe the planes have not been upgraded with the shielding.
Okay.
And as a pilot, I will tell you, my plane doesn't have a bathroom, so I don't have that problem. But there's actually a law that says if you're standing up when we are taxiing, the plane has to stop. If you're in the bathroom, the plane cannot take off. Okay. So when they come yell at you, they definitely have a reason. At the end of the day, the FAA does have monetary fines on a lot of these things, and your pilot will lose his license. Like in my plane, you cannot stand up. But in a commercial plane, if you're standing up, they will not take off, they will not move on a taxiway. You're not allowed to do that.
And Sachin, another question I had was fuel and weight, right? You see a lot of these airplanes injecting out fuel before they land. So is there any regulation around it, or it's more safety? What are the reasons?
So it depends. Like one of my planes has a higher takeoff weight than landing weight. So I can take off, but then if I have to land immediately, I don't have any ways to dump fuel, but that typically is depending on how the landing gear is designed. It may only be designed to land with certain amount of weight. And there's no reason to, like, if their plane takes off, they expect it to land a little bit lighter. It may depend on safety, and that's why sometimes you'll see that planes with circling, like land karna, if there's not an emergency, they will circle and dump fuel because it may not be able to land with the amount of fuel it has.
Sachin, chat or a question hai, which planes do you typically fly?
So I fly 3 kinds of plane. One is a Diamond DA-40. It's a 4-seater, 180 horsepower. I fly a Cessna 182, which is again a 4-seat, 230 horsepower. And a Cessna 172, which is again a 4-seat, 180 horsepower. For those of you mechanically inclined, you'll realize those horsepower numbers are lower than many of your cars have, and which is true. Like one of my cars is 430 horsepower. So if the planes don't need, I mean, they don't take a lot of weight. Like the heaviest plane I fly the max weight it can take is 3,100 pounds. So it doesn't need a lot of power to go. And that's why for those of you who've flown with me, if I ask your weight, please don't be offended, because I have to keep it in weight and balance. So it only depends. Sometimes I take the smaller airplane because again, they're cheaper to fly, or bigger airplane depending on how many people are going. Like 4 people are going, I'll take the heavier plane.
मगाशी तू एक एक्सप्लेनेशन दिलं सचिन की 4 लोक असतात वगैरे आणि द पायलट इज नॉट नेसेसरली द कमांडर. सो त्याच्यावर मला एक विचार येतोय की डज एव्हरीबडी हू ऍटलिस्ट इन द सिव्हिल एअर पेट्रोल जे 4 जण तुझ्या बरोबर फ्लाईट मध्ये आहेत विथ द पायलट, डज एव्हरीबडी नीड टू हॅव द एबिलिटी टू फ्लाय द प्लेन?
नो.
Okay. No. So the corollary to that is that if you're in civil air patrol, flying is one of the things you get to learn if you can get in that mode or get to that level. But there are other ways to volunteer also.
There are plenty of ways to volunteer, and that's a good question. I should have mentioned that. Officially, there's for every squadron, which is where the actual activity happens, there's 27 jobs. Not every squadron has all of those jobs filled. But there's an emergency services officer, operations officer, finance officer, safety officer, logistics officer. At the end of the day, it's a government organization. Plenty of stuff for you to do. So you absolutely don't have to be a pilot. When 4 people go with me in civil air patrol airplane, only one of them is the pilot. The rest of them are not. More often than not, they're not pilots. I know some members of Marathi Vishwa are civil air patrol members now.
Nice.
You have to have uniform. Like I'm not allowed to take non-civil air patrol members in civil air patrol airplanes, because when we fly, we are covered under the FATCA, Federal Employees Tort Claims Act. We are covered under the Air Force insurance. So it is a pretty regulated organization, because again, our genesis came through the Air Force. So we follow all their regulations. So you absolutely do not have to be a pilot to join civil air.
So that brings up a follow-up question. And आपण बघूच या की चॅटवर काय येत आहे. तर फॉलोअप क्वेश्चन असा आहे की, आणि हा आता मी तुला कळेल की मी का पहिला प्रश्न विचारला, की पीपल लाईक मी हु आर नॉट यंग, डेफिनेटली नॉट यंग, आम्हाला व्हॉलंटियर करायचं असेल तर देर आर ऑपॉर्च्युनिटीज बियॉन्ड piloting or any of these things. So you spoke about that. Thank you.
Yes, just one comment. I met a person recently, 92 years old.
Cool.
A CAP member, and active member, comes to the meeting every week.
Very nice.
Active member.
So त्याच्यावरनं एक क्वेश्चन होता, and we'll get to the question on. There is one question on chat, but तू म्हणालास active member who comes to every meeting. So is there a minimum thing that you are required to do? Ki, if I am volunteering, let's say for an operations job or a finance support or something like that, तर महिन्यातनं 2दा किंवा वर्षातनं 10 वेळा असं काही रिक्वायरमेंट आहे का की you are volunteering, so this is the amount of commitment that you have to give?
I will take the easy way out and give the easy answer. It depends. And I'll tell you the reason why. Karan, I'm a group commander right now, so I'm not the one you'll be dealing with day to day. The real meat of where the action happens is at the squadron level. So every squadron commander deals with this differently. But there are certain jobs that, in my opinion, don't require you to be there every Tuesday. So the best thing to do is talk to a local squadron commander. And it's a volunteer organization. Nobody's going to say that you have to spend 6 hours a week.
Okay.
You go to them and say, okay, I'm going to spend 2 hours a week or 1 hour a month, or I can only give you money. We always need money. However you can help, we'll welcome that help.
Okay. So since we are talking about volunteering part, त्याच्यात एक question आलाय chat वर की do you volunteer for a specific role or do you take roles that are available आणि त्याच्यातनं मग तुम्हाला figure out करावं लागतं, or are you assigned roles based on maybe तुमचा informal interview होत असेल or something like that?
Yeah, so when I was a commander at Edison, we grew very, very quickly. We got a lot of young cadets, but we didn't get any proportionate senior members. So CAP मध्ये कसं असतं की we take a responsibility very, very seriously. So everybody who joins has to go through an FBI background check. So it takes a while. So the way I operated my squadron was, when you come in, I will tell you what the squadron needs. And I will tell you everything else that you can do. So I'll give you two jobs. One is something that the squadron needs you to do, and the other job is you tell me what you want to do, because I want you to keep coming back. Like I had a lawyer who did not want to do anything with legal stuff.
Yeah,
once he got out of the office.
I was thinking about that key, if I'm doing something throughout the day, I don't want to volunteer for the same thing in the evening.
Yeah, exactly. And have that conversation. Like I would always welcome that, because I needed people. It's like Edison. I'm picking on Edison a bit because that squadron is very dear to my heart. That's where I was all my squadron life.
Right.
Big squadron doesn't have enough senior members, and which unfortunately is a true story everywhere. Like I go to 9, I have 9 squadrons under me. So I'll go to each one of them regularly, and every squadron is the same thing. We don't have enough senior members. So that's one of the reasons I wanted to come here and talk about it. A lot of people here. If I can get 1 or 2 members to come volunteer.
So good thing is, aplyala chat वर we do have a member who is a volunteer.
Cool.
So thank you very much कि तुम्ही participate करताय. I do want to ask chat was a question that I missed, and Sachin, you probably touched upon that. Okay, what are the other benefits by joining CAP? I mean, one thing was experience. तुम्हाला photos मस्त बघायला मिळतात आणि things, but I'm sure those are the sideline benefits, right? But
yeah,
are there other things?
So if you're joining, so you have to join with an altruistic motive. Right, benefits scoop, but it's hard to quantify those benefits. For example, for young cadets, like I've known a person in Civil Air Patrol, a 12-year-old who could barely speak a word. And if I had to guarantee, if I had to put money down on whether she'll be an astronaut, safe bet. Like she was on the volunteer of the Civil Air Patrol National Magazine. So I've seen young cadets grow from really, really shy 12-year-olds to someone who's, there's one cadet who's in the Naval Academy. There's a bunch of cadets who are in the Air Force Academy. So for cadets, I think it's an amazing experience. Even for senior members, expand your horizon. It teaches you so many things. Like I had an opportunity to go fly in a military airplane on March 15th. Techanantar, again, participating in these, like meeting a colonel on the Air Force base. Those guys have such a wide gamut of experience that you could never, we could never think of those things. Like I remember, I'm digressing a little bit, but I used to, जेव्हा मी PMP exam देत होतो, तेव्हा we used to have a cliched question. Like if you go to Saudi Arabia, for example, and the woman says, I cannot remove my burqa, and there's one of the rules, for example, you have to treat everyone equally. And how do you deal with that situation? Upon academic answers prepare karto. These guys have really been there. And that was just as an example. But these guys have been there, done that, lived it. Just participating with them, just working with them. It's an amazing experience. It's hard to quantify, but it just makes you a better person.
Right. That's I was going to simplify, for people who are looking for benefits, this gives you a different view of the world, a different perspective, and it opens you up to other experiences that maybe we don't get to have on our daily thing. Interesting question, Sachin. This is maybe personal in nature. Okay, how did you earn the title of major, or how does one get to be a squadron leader?
You have to hard work.
No easy way out, huh?
Yeah. In all seriousness, there's a. I mean, it's a regulated organization, so there is there's guidelines to everything. So, for example, when you join on day one, cadets will be in. It's called cadet airmen. For senior members, will be in a senior member status. त्याच्यानंतर there's a prescription. म्हणजे they clearly सांगतात की तुम्हाला you have to do these things. Be a second lieutenant, first lieutenant, captain, major. And there's, thankfully, for senior members, there's no physical fitness requirements. But cadets have physical fitness पण आहे. So cadets have to meet physical fitness. They have to run a mile in so much time. Senior members do know how to drill. And when you go with cadets, you want to look nice. You don't want to embarrass the cadets. But you have to know some basic stuff. But again, there's prescription for everything. Like how do you get to be a major? Senior member to second lieutenant, first lieutenant, captain, major. There's this. They'll teach you everything.
समजा तुम्हाला जर you don't want a leadership role, for example, some people might say, I don't want to be a major or a squadron leader or anything. I just want to volunteer and I want to do my part. Is that possible?
Yes.
Are you? Okay.
Karan, so that's why it's my major is not my rank. It's called my grade.
Okay.
Karan, major doesn't necessarily mean a leader. It just basically signifies your achievement in the program. So you don't actually have to be a leader. In fact, one of my colleagues is a lieutenant colonel, and it's just because like when I'm in the room as a group commander, a lieutenant colonel will come salute me. Karan, I'm his superior in that instance. So you absolutely, so you absolutely don't have to. Again, be a leader can mean a lot of things, but if public speaking, if you don't want to be leader of people, that's perfectly fine.
Okay. A question आला होता and I think Anga answered it, but I just want to ask it again publicly. If people want to contact you or if people want to go further in this and volunteer, right? Do you want to share? Okay, there we go.
Sorry. So that is my CAP email address. You can use my Marathi Vishwacha email address, kiva CAPचा, whichever one you want. Is perfectly fine. For people who know me, they'll know I'm not very good with WhatsApp or phone or voicemails. Only फक्त email address दिला. एक chat मध्ये एक प्रश्न होता कि have you ever experienced a disaster moment or anything unexpected, unusual? It's a natural question. Has happened to me. I've been flying for 15 years. The good thing is I fly powered planes. We don't, the engine some propeller that is there to take you places. But for as a CAP pilot, every year, and as a regular pilot outside of CAP, every 6 months, I have to show my instructor that I can land without an engine. So the Magashi Mizo Niagara Falls photo dakola, that is very dear to me. Current coming back from that flight, we had engine trouble. And somebody must have been watching me that day because we were flying from Buffalo to Morristown.
Mm-hmm.
The first time that engine did something like the sound changed was right above Elmira Airport. So we were at 7,000 feet and all we had to do was circle. And he landed at Elmira. But as a pilot, we'll tell you, every pilot is trained that we're always looking outside. Unless we are flying in the clouds, we're always looking outside. We're looking for a place to land. Most engine failures, I wouldn't say all, but most engine failures, not a big deal because everywhere, I mean, unless of course you're flying over Grand Canyon, there's a flat spot of land or there's a road anywhere, we'll just glide down and land. And like I said, we have to practice this every 6 months to a year, depending on the kind of rating you have. Professional pilots will do this, I think every 3 months, I'm not so sure, but they'll do this plenty of times. So it's not a big deal. I mean, it happens to everyone. It's law of large numbers. If you do it long enough, it will happen to you. You just know how to deal with it.
Okay. So the question probably tula personally ala hota त्यामुळे मला दिसला नाही, which is good. I'm glad you caught it. एक question ala hai Sachin ki what is the minimum rating? And I'm guessing this is a question for you. What is the minimum rating such as IFR required to fly for air patrol?
There is no minimum rating. In fact, very few jobs in civil air patrol will require an instrument rating. So I'll tell you, basically, there's two kinds of ratings when you fly an airplane. One is called VFR, which allows you to fly when the weather is good. And the other one is an IFR rating, जे तुम्हाला clouds मध्ये fly करू देतो. There's no job. I mean, I've been in the civil air patrol for almost 10 years now. I haven't yet found a job that requires an instrument rating. सगळे आपले जे कामं जे फ्लाईट असतात सिव्हिल एअर पेट्रोलच्या ते सगळे गुड वेदर मध्ये पीपल समबडी इज लुकिंग आउटसाइड सो you don't need any kind of rating to fly with the cadets. You need certain number of hours, but that you can build in civil air patrol.
Very nice. I guess we have run out of questions, and we've got a lot of participation today. I think some of the questions probably came from kids who are sitting with their parents. One thing I would say is, hey, like Anaga said at the top of the this event, this is being recorded. So hopefully, jema hey recording ami parat share karu, the link will redistribute. Please do share it with your kids and encourage them to see and hear what Sachin had to say, because this is, I'll be honest, I've worked with Sachin for 2.5 years, and for me this was a revelation. I ऐकलं होतं what this was, and this sounds very fascinating. Just this whole organization ज्याच्यामध्ये there are different grades and different things you can do, and you can contribute back to the society that we all partake in. So
Very nicely said.
Yes, exactly. Somebody saying, wish I knew when my kids were growing up, and it's still not late for you. So, and hopefully not for me. So I'm sure, Sachin, we will see you again very soon. And next time, I think
somebody raised Makaran wants to talk.
Oh, sure.
No,
Yeah.
नमस्कार.
नमस्कार.
आपलं लायसन्स कुठलं असतं? PPL ना?
हो, PPL.
आणि मग ते तुम्हाला सिव्हिलियन एअर पेट्रोल मध्ये घ्यावं लागतं का? यू गॉट इट आउटसाइड ऑफ इट?
बाहेरच. सिव्हिल एअर पेट्रोल सिनियर म्हणजे एडल्ट्सला फ्लाय करायला नाही शिकवत, कॅडेट्सला फ्लाय करायला शिकवते. So if you want to fly with civil air patrol, you have to have a license already.
So you get the PPL license in a private
Yes.
Aviation school.
Yes.
आणि आता करंट काय त्याची कॉस्ट? I mean, you have any idea?
त्याची कॉस्ट adult साठी will be anywhere between 7 to 20,000.
7 to 20,000?
Yes.
आणि किती मिनिमम तास लागतात PPL घ्यायला?
40 तास. 40 तासाचं फ्लाईट इन्स्ट्रक्शन आणि 20 तासाचं ग्राउंड इन्स्ट्रक्शन. पण द नॅशनल ॲव्हरेज इज अबाउट 60 hours. त्यामुळे आय गिव्ह यू वाईड रेंज. आणि जे 7,000 वॉलट जे आहे दॅट इज लाईक दॅट्स फॉर स्पोर्ट पायलट, विच यू कॅन ओनली फ्लाय ड्युरिंग द डे विथ ओनली टू पीपल आणि अ स्मॉलर इंजिन.
आणि हे FAA करून येतं ना लायसन्स?
हे FAA कडून येतं. येस.
ओके, थँक्यू.
ऑफकोर्स.
सचिन, मला एक क्वेश्चन ऍक्च्युली. आता 26 जानेला एक भारत आसमान से ऊंचा नावाचा एक फ्लाइंग बीस्ट नावाचा एक चॅनल आहे. तर त्यांनी ते दोघंही हजबंड अँड वाईफ पायलट होते म्हणजे इंडियामध्ये. आता दे आर युट्यूब हे. तर त्यांनी टॅम्पाला इंडियाचा पूर्ण मॅप युजिंग रेग्युलर म्हणजे छोट्या टर्बोप्लेनने केला बेसिकली. त्याने ते कोऑर्डिनेट्स वगैरे सगळे प्लॉट केलेले, पण त्यांना ती परमिशन कशी मिळाली यार की पूर्ण इंडिया हे करायला?
I should have mentioned that. I touched upon this a little bit. If you want to do it tomorrow, we can go do it tomorrow. Current US, you can only do it in the US. Like you don't need permission. You can simply take up and fly. In fact, if you go to flightaware.com and you type in N63312, that was the plane I flew yesterday. And त्याच्यामध्ये तुम्हाला माझा ट्रॅक दिसेल. But the point being की I could have flown any track with that plane. BMMच्या वेळेला माझा प्लॅन होता की BMM 2022 करायचा, but I didn't have time to do that. But you can literally, like, it will take a little bit of effort to plot all the maps. But you can go only in the US. You can take off and do it whenever you want. You can go flight right now if you want.
तो तू तुझ्या आयपॅडला वगैरे फीड करतोस आणि द प्लेन विल गो ऑटोमॅटिकली लाईक दॅट.
Many planes, the small planes I fly, they typically don't have such advanced avionics. But it's not a big deal to fly. Like I've flown letters before. S is very easy to do. My initial, but some of the other letters are difficult. Take some amount of work. But again, it's not a big deal. Like if you are passionate, I mean, if you want, we can figure out something like similar like that. Not a big deal.
I want to make sure there's time check. Makaran, तुमचा हात अजून raised आहे. तुम्हाला आणखीन काही
Oh,
विचारायचं
no,
असेल?
no, I'm sorry. आता
That's
मी
okay.
काढतो.
That's okay. No worries.
My fault.
Okay. आमच्याकडून एक क्वेश्चन आलाय सचिन की व्हॅलेंटाईन डे ला काय स्पेशल करणार आहेस का तू? हार्ट वगैरे ड्रॉ करणार आहेस का?
No.
इंडियाचे फ्लॅग पण झाले तर.
You know what? That's a great idea. Shilpala सांगतो मी. She's a nervous flyer, but I'm sure she'll be up for something like that.
Fascinating. Anaga, तू आहेस का अजून?
Yeah.
Oh, Sachin, in that case, she'll need a big heart.
Did not disappoint Atul. Nice one.
All right. Sachin, final question. What next?
So what next? I'm working on my instructor rating.
Yeah,
So,
because I'm still
yeah.
waiting. You know that,
Yeah,
right?
I'm a ground instructor, so I can bore you on the ground. I'm preparing for my training, so I can bore you in the airplane. Hopefully, this year is the year. Yeah.
Okay. Anybody else? Any other questions? Final call. Sachin, again, thank you very much for volunteering. I know this was excellent. Ani, you did a great job also today with the questions. Thank you very much for that. With that, we bid everybody a very good night, and we will meet again on February 27. And this time we will be talking to Swapnali Kelkar, who will talk about immigration issues, especially faced by H-1B immigrant visa holders who are currently looking for a job or have lost a job recently. So February 27 at 7 p.m. and Zoom details daatilas. So again, thank you everybody for coming to the session, and good night. Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.